getting my final setup going here. It's always a technical last minute checklist. About 3 or 4 minutes will be on. Says I can set up setting up is important. Following through is more important, I guess. Francesco says, hey, I've spent all this year watching 343 TV and finally I'm watching the live stream. Welcome. Dillis, let's see. I think John H. Kingston III was here earlier. Sam. Joe's here. All right. Why don't we start the show? Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Friday once again. Friday. We are 343 TV. This is Production Basics with Abe Duque. I am your host. I do this Friday streams. I'm the Friday guy. We have streams here every day, I think, except for Sundays. We go at 1 p.m. I see some people here for the first time. Notable mention is, I think, Francesco from Italy is here for the first time. Welcome. Says he's been watching the streams, or I guess the 343 TV for a year or something like that. So, is that what I read? And yeah, first time he's actually watching the stream. So welcome. Happy to see that. See some names of some people I don't recognize. Let's see. Who else did I see here? I mean, there are the usual suspects like John H. Kingston III and Todillas and Martin Crockett and Simple Sam. Joe is here. Let's see who else is here. I saw another name that I did not recognize. Where is it? Francisco Javier Gomez. Yeah, saying this jam is fire. Thank you. It's my music, both on the starting kind of the starting soon screen where I'm kind of fooling around with some Eurorack stuff, and then the stuff that comes after the music that comes in the opening screen. Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. We're here. You know that we're here. We're from 343 Labs. 343 TV is from 343 Labs. We're a school. We have schools in Berlin and in New York City. We have classes that are all starting up in January, so please visit our website. We also have classes online. And so check out our website and see for a class schedule. Maybe if you like what you see, maybe you want to have some personalized attention from us. Anyway, let's get into today's topic because I wanted to really jump in there. So if you've been following, and if you haven't, you should watch the last, at least the last couple of streams, couple of Fridays, where I was or have been recording a live jam. So on the first day, we kind of set up the jam. We kind of, put it all together. And then last Friday, we went off and recorded the jam. We multi-tracked it onto my DAW, an Ableton we used for this one. And that's where we left off. We recorded the jam. So let's get right into the Ableton screen and we pick up where we left off last time. So here is my Ableton screen. Let us go to my, hold on, let me move this other screen out of the way. There's a lot of management of screens here. Let's get into the arrangement view. So as you may remember, we have here all these tracks here are tracks that we recorded from the Apollo 16, and I was meticulous enough to label them all. And we have not too many parts, and I'll just go through what they are. These top two are MIDI kind of tracks that I used to program a couple of things, but I actually recorded the MIDI so for now, let's leave them out of it. This is the TR8 drum machine, which you could see down here in the corner, which I have 4 outputs out of. I have the left-right output, which has everything except for the kick and the snare, and then there's a kick and the snare that I recorded here separately. Then I have down here, this one I didn't sort of name, so let me just rename it now. I know what it is. It's the 303. It's the TT 303. So let's just leave that as 303. That's the bass line. And so we recorded that. We recorded the Moog Minotaur, which is that guy over here. So the 303 will be this one here. We recorded the Moog Minotaur. And then we recorded the DFAM, which is this wonderful piece of machinery here. And the Mother 32, which is that one over there. And this is the Achilles Castle, which I took out of this rack. I kind of reconfigured this rack. I actually, if you remember what I had last week, I had a lot less than I have in front of you right now. Last week I just had this and these things, but now I snuck this guy in there, and I'm going to try. I'm actually signing up for the next series that we're going to be doing. So I'm just kind of getting ready here and doing some experiments. Yesterday, I spent the whole day in the studio just going nuts with all my Eurorack gear and reconfiguring all my racks, including the ones in the back and on the side over there, to kind of I guess it's year-end maintenance. Anyway, we got that. We have that the Kimi's Castle, which is not here, and then we recorded the effects. And I have two effects units. I have the Lexicon LXP15 and the Digitech DSP 256, which is in my rack over there. And if you remember, maybe last week was a fun show because I had a camera that I took around and I showed you guys actually everything that I have in the studio. Went behind there, showed you all my cables, showed you how the sausage is made. I was saying, and yeah, I have a rack here with some outboard gear, which I use to record here. So let's play some of this stuff. Let's start from the top. So basically, I just started recording, but then I guess moving on later, I kind of set it up in a way where, I could imagine the beginning of a song. Now, my task for today is to kind of prep this track, and let's see how far we get, because we only have an hour, right? But I want to, I want to take it from the point where we were last week, where we recorded kind of a jam. I did this live jam in front of you guys. Last week was a great show. I really enjoyed last week. I was really happy with the show at the end of the show. If you have some time, go and watch it, and you'll see what I mean. But anyway, so this I recorded live for you guys as I was talking to you guys, and here are all the parts coming in. Here's the hi-hats coming in, and I'm not gonna sit here and play you the whole 8-9 minutes actually that I recorded, maybe even almost 10 minutes. Yeah, it says 10 minutes here, so I must have spent 10 minutes recording for you guys. But I'll just kind of jump in there and show you some of the highlights. So I had that Moog Minotaur, and the Mother 32 is doing all these really nice parts here. Now, all of these are recorded. You hear this Mother, that's the lead that you hear right now. All this was recorded in dry, but you hear it with effects because I actually recorded the effects down here. But let me show you what happens if I take off and solo this. That's all it is. And that's great because now I can redo the effects. And then it was what I planned to do. So it's kind of, now it's a jam that I've recorded, but I can do so much in post-production that it's going to make me look really good once I finish it and say, yeah, this is something I did live, which is true, but with the post-production, you can fix so much, which is what we're going to do today. And that's the magic of having a multi-track situation, a multi-track recording situation. There's a lot of multi-track recorders out there. They're not that expensive. I think Scarlett, the 8-channel Scarlett, that's probably a really great thing to start with, or there are so many others, but I'm trying to think of budget ones. There are nice, good quality budget ones that you can get going with and get this sort of style of recording set up for yourself. It gives you so much leeway because you can have fun, recording something live and then go nuts later in post-production. Anyway, so I'll show you what happens if I add the effects to it. Now, this is going to be the effects with everything else. So I'll just bring the music back. Remember what this channel is doing, the Mother's doing here. Ready? Ooh, now it's all back to being the nice sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the effects. Now we're back to all the sounds together. They're all playing in. They sound okay. But we're not going to use my recorded effects. I recorded them for a reference to show me what it could be and what I had going on that day. Bring it back again. So just to give me the feeling of what I had, just to kind of have something to shoot for. But I'm going to go individually on each track and add effects and do things individually to each. But I'm going to go by the numbers here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start processing this track in the ways that I would if I was actually mixing this track and working on it myself. So the first step that I always do, and I'm going to put these MIDI tracks away because I'm not really going to be using these during the time that we're here, is I have, and it's good that I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 9 tracks with the effects, but I'm not going to be using the effects at the end of the day. I'm probably just going to keep those as a reference. I'm going to add effects to each thing individually. I always want to start with the kick. So, and I always want to have the kick for some reason. For me, it makes all the sense in the world to have the kick all the way on the left side, because I go from left to right, of course. And then maybe the bass line, which is the 303, kind of right next to it. So I'm just going to set up the stuff in the order in which I'm going to probably try to address it. So I will always address the kick first in a mix. Next, I will always address the bass line in conjunction with the kick and see what they do together. And then I'll keep on bringing in those elements that are going to be found in the center, like a snare, for example. The snare is definitely going to be found in the center in here. So that's going to be next. So it's probably the sequence that I'm going to take on most tracks when I'm trying to work a track out, which is to start on the low end and with the most girthiest and centered element, which is going to be maybe the kick and the bass line following. Let's see, what is Simple Sam talking about? But you are working on it yourself, Abe. Well, I wonder what he means. Let's see. Okay, so let's keep on going. I see people are talking. Min, the universe. Yeah, what's up, Min? Finally, you came to the stream. Awesome. This is awesome. Min just finished my mixing and mastering class that ended on Sunday, last Sunday. We had a really awesome time at the school where we just spent time, learning all that I think is appropriate to know to begin to think like an engineer. And then we went, into maybe more than half of the course is just practical application, just getting our hands dirty and mixing and trying to get things, trying to get learned by doing. Anyway, Min, great to see you here. All right, let's continue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect the kick. Oh, Max Wild is here as well, our feelers leader. I'm going to inspect the kick, and if you know me, you know that one of my favorite devices ever is going to be a spectrum analyzer. So let's have a look at what the kick looks under a spectrum analyzer, and let's bring that down for a second here. Sorry. I don't need it to be expanded like that. Now the kick is nice, but it does have a little bit of low end that I might not need, considering that this is a 4 on the floor. I'm going to maybe take that kick and roll it off just a little bit. I'm not going to go nuts with it. Let's see how big the fight between the kick and the bass drum is. And I was thinking even to augment the kick in some way, because now I can. But let me just kind of go through the numbers here. Let's grab a Fab filter. I have a Pro Q in this computer. A Pro Q2 will be fine. Put it before the spectrum. That always makes, although the Pro Q has a spectrum of its own. And maybe get a low cut. I like to start at 36 dB per octave, and I'm not going to go all the way to 20. People say, hey, cut at 20. I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to go about 16 or so. All I want is just a little bit of relief on the low end. Just a little bit. I still want to keep some of the organic low feeling of the whole thing. Okay, so now that I have that, maybe I want to add a little bit of a glue compressor to it, because it was a wild recording, meaning it was a recording made analog. So I like the way the glue compressor works on especially drums. And I'm not going to go nuts with it. I'm just going to add a little bit of compression. And now the glue compressor is the SSL G series bus compressor that we get in Ableton, for those Ableton users out there. If not, you can get so many different versions. You can get the Cytomic one. You can get the Waves one. UAD has a version. There's so many. I think it's one of the most modeled compressors out there. Let's see. Let's go to the glue compressor. Drop that in there. And just a little bit, just tighten it up a little bit. Nothing out of this world, really. Okay, so I got that going on. let's go to the bass line. Here's my bass line. Same process. I'm going to go and grab a Spectrum device and look at that. And now there's a lot more low that I'm really not using on this. Let's this time let's cut it a little more, or maybe we'll see. Well, it depends on, you always have to think about when you have two elements that are supposed to go together, like the kick and the bass line in this case, right? You always have to have a little chat in your head and think about what is the primary. And, I think in most situations of like this type of music, the primary is going to be the kick drum. So I'm not going to cut the kick drum as much as I'm going to cut a little bit more on the bass line. So once again, I'm looking for maybe the Pro Q, and I'll drop that in there. And once again, maybe start with 36 and make it a low cut. No, low shelf. No, low cut. Sorry. There we go. And we'll bring that down to about 20. Just to, I'm going to have that be tight. Now, with this one, I could also bring up a little bit of the glue compressor. But in this case, I'm going to take the glue compressor and tighten it up a little more than I did with the bass drum. And now the reason that sometimes I use the glue compressor, it's a weird reason. Sometimes I use the glue compressor as an EQ, believe it or not. And how does that work? Well, a lot of times, one of the things about the glue compressor, right, is that if you drive this thing and let's say you lower the threshold and make it compress, it starts to squash or compress, right? But as it compresses, what happens, I'm ridiculously compressing it right now. I'm going to compress it till there's no tomorrow. So I have a super compressed version of this bass line now. Like, it's so compressed, right? But one of the things that you'll maybe noticing is that the bottom, the lowest part of it, has been compressed out of existence a little bit. It's okay because it made it super tight, but the bottom is like really kind of like gone, but not in the worst way possible. So now I'll never do what I'm doing right now, which is compress it this much. I will use it at times to get it to tighten up the low end in preparation for another device, which I'm going to use in a second. So the thing is, if you get it past like halfway point between 0 and 5, you start to get that kind of squeezing bass bottom and tightening bass bottom. Let's call it tightening because it's nicer to say tightening, right? But if you get to 5, for sure you're starting to tighten the low end out of existence, which is okay because I just want a nice, very detailed low end there. Let's see how it's doing with the kick drum. Hold on, my Ableton's doing the little beach ball thing. Give it a second. Here we go. Okay, so that's pretty nice, but now, and that's okay now. That actually sounds pretty good. But let's take that and add some low end to it now. And this is what I wanted to tell you about, which is I sometimes take away low end, especially with like the glue compressor, on bass elements, so that I can reintroduce bass with something else, like maybe the Pultec. Pultec, if you know me, you know that I love Pultec bass, especially that Pultec bass trick that you can sort of get going by attenuating and boosting at the same time. So let's get that in there. So I got my Pultec in there. So let's go back to soloing this part here. And I suspect around 30 hertz might be a good place to start. Yeah, that's a nice bottom now. And I'm going to attenuate. And usually I attenuate about as much as I boost. And let's see what that sounds like now. See, the low end is back in a beautiful way. let's compare that to what it would have been before. That's totally different. So that's with no processing whatsoever, and this is with processing now. Tight, bassy, raring to go. Let's hear it back with the kick drum now. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now, in the meantime, let me lose this everything going. So in the meantime, I think I got a little bit less headroom than I want right now. I'm a little bit scared that this is going to clip when everything starts playing. So as no individual parts are clipping, I still want to make sure that I don't clip at the master. So I want to kind of give myself some headroom here. So if you know me, I usually recommend that we get about -8, -10 with the kick drum peak, so that we keep some headroom. So let me select all these tracks and bring all of them down together. And that's going to be okay, because now I got a good amount of headroom here. Let me raise it a little bit now for you guys in my mix here. So yeah, now I have the headroom that I wanted to have and need to have in order not to, to stay in the right place. Okay, so back to our kick and bass drum combination. And I tell you, with dance music, with kicks and bass drums, once you get that going, it's almost half the game there, right? Okay, so let's get that kick a little louder. And let's see, I mean, we haven't even tried to do the sidechaining thing. And let's see what we get out of that. Let's see if we get some good results out of sidechaining the kick to the bass. So let's go back and start it again. And let's grab a compressor now. You say, Abe, you already have a compressor. Why don't you sidechain with the compressor that's in there already? Well, no, that compressor's got its own role. It's doing its own thing. That compressor is not meant to do anything other than what it's doing. So I'm not going to goof around with it and add sidechain with it, so which I could just grab another one here and get that done with. So let's turn on the sidechain. Let's select the TR8 kick to be our sidechain. Now I need an area where the bass line is still going, so let's just go over here where it's really going. And I'm going to, I like to start at infinity to 1, go all the way up with how much compression for sidechain, and then bring down the threshold. Now that's ridiculous, but if you know me, you know that I'm all about exaggerating, at least at first, to just immediately make sure that I'm barking up the right tree. Of course, I'm always going to back off of all my exaggerations, but I think exaggeration is a tool that you can really use. One of the things that drives me crazy, if I saw a student, for example, do this, I say, okay, lower the threshold, and then they go, okay, and they start like this. Yeah, but I'm just trying to find where it sounds best. Hold on. Yeah, maybe you should just go straight to the action and back off. You're better off doing that. So let's solo that. You can feel the pump. Now, the question is, do I want to turn it into another part, or do I want to make it sort of pump to the kick drum so that it has just has that ducking effect where you really can't hear the pump, but you can definitely reap the benefit of it in the mix. Well, let's see. Let's go back to this area over here. Put my start position there so that it starts always from there when I start it. Okay, so let's get back there. So once again, slowing down here. Okay, so it sounds pretty good. Now, in the original recording, we had some reverb, I guess, on the on the 303. So let's do that. And maybe the question is, do I put the effect before the compression, the sidechain compression, or after? That's a good question. You probably want to do it, test both, really. So let's drop a reverb. Just get simple here with Ableton's reverb, and set it up. First, I want to set it up. So, you drop a reverb, and you have two choices. You either get to know your reverb, or Min's laughing at something I did or said. Min says, "Hey, LOL." I don't know what he's laughing about, but yay, I laugh with you. So you either get to know your reverb and all its parameters and intimately, know how it goes, or you get to know a few presets. I rather you don't go for presets. If you know me and you come to my classes, you know that I frown on presets, because I find that presets is it's really you got to be able to be self-sustained, and you got to be able to reproduce the things that you want to do, and presets don't always fit right. They may fit something like okay sometimes, but not perfectly. There's never a perfect preset for anything. So let's take this from scratch. So if you notice, I kind of set my my default reverb here in Ableton to come in a certain way. I have no cut on the end coming in, no cuts on the way out. Well, I had this high cut. What I want to have is, whenever I approach a reverb job, whenever I'm thinking, okay, I got to do reverb on something, I spend a minute to kind of visualize. And visualization, or hearing or seeing things in your head, is something that you can really work on, and it'll really help you become a better producer and engineer. I visualize, or let's call it visualize, but I hear the effect in my head of that I want to attain. I kind of really try to get as close as I can in my head to it. And then I try to match the tool that I have to what I hear in my head. You can't just go around willy-nilly saying, well, does it sound good this way? Does it sound good that way? You can go, I guess you can do that. But I think if you want to become a more targeted, more able producer and engineer, you do have to have a target, a vision for what you're going to do. So I have an idea of what I want, and that's good. One thing that's going to help me get there with my reverb is opening my decay. For me, I open decay up, and I put the mix to about 50-50. I'm never going to use it at a 50-50, but I make it completely drowning in effect, because that'll, once again, I told you about the exaggeration that I love to do. I love to exaggerate. So because it tells me if I'm barking up the right tree. So I'm going to, now with that setup, I think there's a few parameters that can help me get towards what I want. And if you ever play with this Ableton reverb, there's a few parameters that you'll turn and have almost no change in the sound, like the shape, for example. Yeah, there is some change. The shape is the crossover, the shape of the crossover between the early and late reflections, right? But it's not the biggest change. I mean, we could change the pre-delay, of course, and that would be a big deal. But I'm more concerned when I start with the kind of the texture of the whole thing. And I think size, for example, is going to be one of those knobs that are going to get you to that texture. Kind of like what's happening there. And identify those knobs on your reverb or your any. It doesn't have to be the Ableton one, that will have those effects. Will change the device so radically that you can hone in on a sound. One of the things that, the way that I started in music production was I fell in love with synthesizers, right? And then I bought a couple. But I had no internet in 1980 something, and I had no way of unless I just read a book at the library or studied the manual, there was not too much information on how to on sound design and what it all was all about and how it all worked. So one of my biggest assets was that I was a moron in a way that I didn't care I wasn't afraid to turn the knobs. I was just turning knobs like a maniac and was just honing in on things that would change the sound in a way that I liked. Regardless of what it was or what it was meant to do, I didn't care. I didn't care what it was called. I just knew that this knob did that, and I started to identify that. So with that said, that's how I kind of still do it. Now, of course, in the years after this early stage, I did learn about everything, and I do teach it. And by the way, it's about halfway through the session. We have a school, 343 Labs. I teach there. John Salway teaches there. Dane teaches there. Icarus Moth teaches there. All the people that you see here streaming, we all teach at the school. Come and visit our website. We have classes starting in the beginning of the year, both in Berlin, New York, and online. And if you come to one of my classes, of course you'll see me, teaching you the details of all of these sort of ways to get about making a sound and what every parameter means and so on. But that can be taught to you. But one of the things that I think is not stressed enough is that you just go in there and just turn the crap out of these knobs and see what they do. Even to the extent that maybe you break the model, meaning that you go beyond what the model was supposed to be doing, and you make it do something that it wasn't supposed to. Anyway, enough preaching. Let's get back in there. So I really like kind of what it's doing there. Let's get where it's a little more moving here. Okay, so it's ridiculously long decay time. I know that. And maybe with a little bit of shelving here, I can focus in more on this mental vision that I had on how to... Ooh, that's nice. I kind of like that a lot. And I'm going to back off now on the decay. And radically back off on the... And in that sequence too. I usually back off on the decay and then back off on the dry wet. And that left me with a pretty nice reverb there for my 303. Now, decay time is crucial here. You want to have the least amount of decay time you can that gets the job done. Now, if that means you have to do this, and that's what you want, fine, no problem. But if it means you go all the way down here, then fine. I kind of like that. And then the same thing goes for the dry wet. The least amount of dry wet that you need to get the job done. Let's turn that off. So that's totally different. But that's a nice polished sort of reverb that maybe is even a little too much for my taste right now. But let's see what the whole kind of chain that we were working on is doing for us here. This is the 303 before. Well, still okay, I guess. But bring that into that. And by the way, if you like what you're seeing, please give me a like. And hey, let's look at how many. We have 21.1K subscribers. Wow. That's awesome. That's amazing. We definitely got to that 21K. That's great. We're growing so fast. I'm so happy about that. Yeah. So subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Tell your mom about us. Tell your aunt about us. And yeah, please give me a like if you can. That would be very nice. Anyway, once again, that's with my treatment, and that's without it. Now we could get more radical about the treatment. Of course, we could add more reverb if you think it needs to be a little wetter. And so on. But let's move on. So now I have my kick and my bass line working for me. Now let's go on to the next parts. So let's go to identify an area here with a snare. This is a snare part here. So that's our snare. Same process. I usually just look at it first under a spectrum and see what the heck is going on in there. You know, what you hear is one thing, but what you see is the stuff that escapes you when you're listening. And okay, so let's work that. So with the snare, it's a funny element. The snare, it has stuff all across the spectrum. You know, all the way up here and over here. And you'd say that this is the most important part, but really it's the whole thing that's super important. And then it also even has some low end over here, even though it doesn't have so many subs. Some snares do have subs. Regardless, let's grab an EQ8 and just kind of do a little cleany here. Just making it. Let's see where the fence is. I call it a fence, where the line, where the cut can be, that you actually hear a difference, like here. Let's see. That's definitely crossing the fence. Let's go back. There we go. Now we're on the other side of the fence. Usually when I identify the fence, then I usually pull back a good amount just to make sure I have some girth still there that I maybe didn't recognize with my headphones or earbuds, which I'm using now, or my speakers. And if you really want to be that conservative, you can pull back a little more than that. Okay, so you don't enlist the snare into your production to make it do the sub part of the production. So you don't have to be afraid that you're going to lose that earth-shaking bottom from that snare, unless you're doing something special, which can be the case. But let's bring that in with the kick and the bass line. Let's get those guys together. Okay, so the thing about this now is we gotta process it a little bit. So let's get back to soloing it again. And let's play with there's a EQ that I really love for snares and for kicks from API. It's the API 560. Oh, 550, sorry. The 560 is the graphic one. The 550 is the EQ. A lot of people use these. It's a very, very beautiful asymmetrical EQ. And by asymmetrical EQ, I mean that asymmetrical EQ is a type of EQ setup. Hold on, let me just get the loop there. Is so you have like a bell, right? And you identify a frequency that you want to boost. You start boosting it, right? With asymmetrical EQ, the louder or the more amplitude you give, the EQ becomes narrow and more narrow and more narrow and more narrow. So you get this kind of going on. And that makes for great musical sounding EQ because it just gets up there and you could really hone in on that frequency you want to get at. So let's see what we can do with this. Let's start with the mids so this guy on the bottom, this one, sorry, I'm working with the middle one here, but the blue one, there's two knobs in here that's superimposed on each other. You see this one and this one. This knob here is going to select the frequency, and this knob here is going to let me boost or cut the frequency. So let's boost it, and let's change the frequency. And again, you see me completely exaggerating. Yes, Abe loves to exaggerate. And I just want to find the thing that sounds the best to me. With these old devices, these vintage sort of setup devices, you don't have to be worried about tweaking too much. You just have to find something that works. And it usually is. It survived so long, and people have venerated it for so long that it usually just gets the job done real quick. So let's see. That's without it. And I'll add that. And then I'll do a little bit of high end. Same situation. I'm going to boost it first. And then find the high end that I want to boost. The frequency that I want to boost on the high end, that is. Oh, that's interesting. Let's go back there. And let's see what that sounds like without it. Oh, yeah. Let's see. It ejected so much life into it. So let's see what that sounds like in the mix. Yeah, that's nice. And let's do the same thing for the snare when it comes to some reverb. Now, with you know, a lot of people, I hear this a lot, and let me just address it real quick. I hear this thought about, hey, wouldn't it be better to have like one reverb on on a kind of a return track, and where you could like share that reverb with a bunch of different things, so that you can get the sound going, so it all sounds like it belongs together. Yeah, I guess that used to be the way to think about things when you only could afford one reverb and you had to share it with a lot of different tracks. If you remember, and if you watched last week's show, and I talked about this earlier, I have the effects track which has a reverb and a delay that were set up exactly like that, with where I was sending individual, you know, parts, bit more, bit less from some to the reverb and delay, and recorded it all together. And it sounds very nice when you do that. It has this kind of really kind of we all belong together kind of soup in the end, though. It becomes a little bit less distinct than you can make it. And modern music has progressed from that. And I think that since we have access to having as many instances of a reverb or a delay that we don't necessarily have to share them with we can grab a delay that does the job perfectly. Now, it may, or a reverb that just does the job perfectly for that one element. Now, it might be similarly set up to another one, but slightly different, maybe. The EQing might be a little different. Maybe the decay might be a little different, or it may be completely radically different than the other one. But it gives the separation, and it's still going to sound really nice, but it's going to sound more polished and more separated. So I am not one of those that believe like, oh yeah, all your drums need to go through one reverb chain or through one reverb return. I don't know. Anyway, I see you guys are talking in the chat. I see John Selway's here. Hey, John. Min is here. He's still saying stuff. Let's see. Simple Sam. Anybody I don't recognize? Oh, F-Stop's here. Hey, F-Stop. Who else? Anyway, again, guys, let yourselves be known in the chat. Meet everybody. A lot of the people you see here, I think if you're here for the first time or don't come here that frequently, there are people that are in this chat on a daily basis. There's a couple of characters in here, or not even a couple, at least maybe 5 to 10 people that are in there right now that are here every day and definitely come to at least my show, but I know come to every show. Some of them just live here. Some of them just, I don't know what they do on their off time. Maybe they're bots. I think Simple Sam is a bot. I don't think Simple Sam actually exists. Watch what he says next. Anyway, let's get back into that. So let's get a reverb going for that snare. So again, let's keep it simple. I mean, I could grab another reverb from the a million reverbs that I have in my computer, but I'm just gonna keep it very simple. Let me just mute everything else at this point. And quickly just, I remember grabbing a preset for me would just be like, Once again, quickly just get at open decay time so you could really hone in on that texture that you want. Maybe play with the pre-delay a little bit. just listening to the different textures. Oh, I like that. It does really nicely with a bigger pre-delay that size. Once again, shut down the decay and play with the EQ. You could also play with the EQ on the way in. It's going to give you slightly different results, but I'm just trying to listen and work on this at the same time. And once again, back off on the dry wet and the decay. I do not like very noticeable reverbs. I like it to be very noticeable when I turn it off, like right now. See how different it sounds? Okay, let's let this go. Let's go to the next. Oh, here we have our hi-hats. And for the sake of time, which we're running out of, I'm just gonna leave the hi-hats the way they are. Maybe just drop a quick EQ on there, just for. There's nothing down here, but just kind of just being sensible here. Let's get this Minotaur going. Same situation. Just gonna go straight with the EQ since the EQ has a bit of a spectrum device on there. I don't really need subs from this part, so I'm not worried about losing my earth-shaking bottom. So I could go 20 hertz with the cut. Just safe at 20 hertz. I think I'm safe at 30 hertz with this sound. I'm going to grab another EQ that I really love. You guys probably seen me use this before. It's the Neve 1073. I'm sure this is going to inject some life into this real quick. By the way, while I look for that, you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I am your Friday host. Tune in for tomorrow, where John Selway will have his. I'm not sure. John is in the chat somewhere, but I don't know if it's John's having his Electro Saturdays or Techno Saturdays. But he usually has our Saturday show where he's going to announce our winner of our giveaway this week, which is 3-month subscription to Splice, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that'll be tomorrow's show on John's show. Maybe John, if you're in there, you could tell us what it's going to be about, techno or electro, or maybe neither or neither. So let's turn this on and having trouble hearing any difference here. Kind of liking these lower parts here, what they're doing. Once again, exaggerated, pulling it up a little bit. I'm going to bring up the air, even though the air isn't so noticeable to me. I always find that somehow the air helps it in mixing, even though you can't really put your finger on why. Let's see this on and off. Get these guys together. Oh, I want them together in here. Turn that off. I could go all the way and do some compression, but we'll leave that there for now. Now, I usually store in my Ableton setups, I have 3 of my favorite reverb, delay, and echo set up in there in the kind of my presets, the way that I like. So I'm going to start with, with this Minotaur, I'm going to see, do I want to hear it more reverb based, which is okay? Do I want it more delay based? Or do I want it more echo based? I think echo wins for me right now. And I'm just going to keep that for the sake of time. I'm just going to keep that echo the way it is. And let's turn the defam on. Same situation, real quick. Just let's grab a 1073, throw it in there. It has a cut here. I could apply here. I could use a filter that has already built into it, and I'll add some high shelf, cutting corners a little bit, but I'm just looking for a nice sound out of it real quick. It's without it. It's with it. And it'll get a little balance on it. This thing changed a lot, and if I look at the recording of the DFAM, there's a lot of dynamics in it. There's a heck of a lot of dynamics in it. So I'm probably going to want to have a compressor on there, and I think a good compressor for this guy would be the Universal Audio, the 1176. Let's throw that in there. And I basically just want to keep it from going nuts. I could do the series compression thing. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go with a 4:1 ratio. Not such a quick attack, but not the slowest either. And yeah, the release can maybe remain around there. And just let that kind of keep it in check. Get the Mother 32. Now this is our lead sound. Once again, I'm going to maybe do the same thing exactly that I did with the other one, just for saving time. Do the cut here with the filter and add some. Yeah, that was nice, that the air on that. Okay, and let's EQ the mids here a little bit. I want it to pop. Come on, play something. Okay, so I'm backing off. Again, exaggeration, and then subduing your exaggeration. And let's see, reverb. Do we want reverb on that? Yeah, I probably want reverb on this one. And a big one, the way it's set up right now. So everything's kind of getting loud on me. Once again, I gotta bring all these levels a little bit down to keep some headroom there. That Minotaur is really loud. Or too loud for my taste right now. What's this guy here? Oh, that's the Achilles Castle. Let's do that with it right now. It's terrible that we're running out of time. I mean, I could probably work on this for like 5 hours with you guys. All right, let's let this loop go, because we were just listening to the same loop for a while. It's a little more on the kick there. So loud. And these are the old effects. I'm not going to be using them because I already got new effects for everything. But, you know, I mean, there are so many things that I could be doing with this. It's sort of a very rushed sort of situation with this only 1 hour that we get. Of course, I could be, you know, using some sort of spatial effects, some psychoacoustic effects, maybe the Haas effect, maybe the principles of psychoacoustics, you know, with trying to get some depth going on in here. We haven't addressed any of that. We haven't panned anything. We haven't used any automation. There's so much that we could do to this track. I mean, I wish that I could just hang here all day, but we can't. But if you want to see this happen more, come take a class with us. I promise you will not be disappointed. We show you everything we do. We kind of, we wear our heart on our sleeve. We show you exactly what we do. We show it to you live. We don't, curate these videos and then put them out. We do this in real time, and we show you that this is the experience that you're going to have, but a more personalized version when you come to our classes and take our classes in person. So please go to our website. Go to 343labs.com, 343labs.de will give you the German website, which is also in English. Or just stop by our schools. If you're in Berlin, come to our school in Berlin. Come to our school in New York City. We have classes starting in January, and I have a bunch of classes. Right now, I have no classes. All my classes ended for the year. I kind of just in relax mode. But in January, things get going hot and heavy. So come on down. We can spoon feed you the information. We can hold your hand and make sure you get this done right. It's great. I'm glad to see everybody here. VJMT says panning and Haas effect would be interesting indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, just not enough time. All we really did was just do our basic initial prep for the track. We didn't make it, we didn't make it. I could imagine making this a lot more special, if you will. Let's see who else is saying. Let's see. Tadillas is here. TI-80 Mark. Hi, everyone. Just joining, even though, no, it's close to the end. Well, yes, we're happy to have you regardless. Darren is here. UAD DSPs help significantly. Yes, but not only UAD has great DSPs these days. You can get stuff from Plugin Alliance, stuff from Waves. Even the stuff in the box on your DAWs, believe it or not, that stuff is hot. Compared to what I had when I started in like, I don't know, in the late 80s, if you come in a time machine, I always say this, you come in a time machine and show me a laptop with Ableton in it or Bitwig or something in it, I would have probably died because, it would have been a better studio than 99% of the people had access to at that time. So you can do so much with time and a good DAW. Anyway, that is it. I can't believe it. Let's play some of this music as we kind of talk about things on the way out. We're going to be taking a break. This is the last show for the year for us. We're going to shut down operations for the holidays. We'll be getting started at the beginning of next year again. We'll be announcing that soon as the next season gets going. So you guys that are used to being here on a daily, I'm sorry. You're going to have to get your fix some other way, but we won't be here. But we have one more show left. That's John Selway's show tomorrow. John it's the flagship show of our operation here, of our enterprise here. It's the show that everybody is there or is square. He will be announcing the giveaway for this week, which is the 3-month subscription to Splice. And he will be having the last Christmas party stream show of the year. So thank you once again. It's been a great year, everybody. It's been a great time. I've had an amazing time with you guys here at 343 TV and at 343 Labs at their school. Come and see us in person. I'm sure you will not regret it. And with that, I say goodbye.